everyone, welcome to a Married at First Sight behind the scenes webinar. This is going to be a lovely session. We have some of the creme de la creme of everyone who worked on that show here to tell us all and reveal everything that we need to know. We're just going to wait just a couple of seconds just in case you're coming in. But I'm Shana Lerry, lovely to meet everybody, and I'll get into introducing everyone in just a short second. So I'll give everyone a couple of more, maybe 30 seconds or so. So I don't know if I should do any small talk here. Hope everyone had a good morning, and it's a bit of a rubbish day in London today. But what's new? Right, we've got a couple more coming in. Love to see everyone. Hi, everyone. Just a couple more seconds and we can get started. Right then, let's crack on, shall we? So hello and a very warm welcome to the RTS Futures event, Married at First Sight behind the scenes. Thanks so much everyone for joining us. I'm Radio 1 DJ Shana Lerry, your host for this session. So if you're new to RTS Futures, then I'd like to say a huge welcome. So RTS Futures holds free monthly events for graduates and those in the early stages of their career. So we cover a wide range of inspiring topics across all of TV output, whether that's drama or comedy, journalism, reality, you name it basically. And through our events, we provide top tips and guidance on everything from CV writing to networking to help you on your way. Now, we hope that you get a lot out of today and know more about how the series was made and what it takes to be a commissioner, a producer, or a researcher in this genre of TV. So before we get started, I just want to mention that we will be putting your questions to the panel towards the end of the session. So please do write any questions you have in the Q&A function on this Zoom as we go through the session, and we'll get to them just as soon as we can. So if anything pops up in your mind thinking, oh, I really want to ask Phil this, or oh, I need to know this about the series, then please do, we encourage you to pick their brains and we'll get to them by the end of the session. So joining us today is a fabulous bunch of panellists who have a wealth of experience across the industry and are ready to share their expertise, their secrets and top tips with you. So on our panel today, we have Lee McMurray. Hey, Lee.
I was slightly alarmed that I'm sharing my secret. I'm not sure I should do that.
Please don't overshare though, keep it PG. So lovely to have you, Lee. Lee is the Channel 4 commissioning editor supremo who's worked on Married at First Sight for the last 2 years, as well as overseeing its successful move to E4. And he's also commissioned Caroline Flack, Her Life and Death, Gemma Collins' Self-Harm and Me, Celebrity Call Centre, as well as being the commissioner for Made in Chelsea and the Sex Clinic on E4. And before joining Channel 4, Lee, you were an executive and series producer across a range of popular factual shows. So thanks for coming on board, Lee.
Welcome.
Lovely stuff. Up next is James Kayler. Hey, James.
Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm grand. Thanks so much for joining the call. So James was the series director and has a variety of experience directing shows like Love Island, Comic Relief, Children in Need, Take Me Out, Soccer Aid, Pride of Britain, 10 Years Younger, the list goes on. And he's just wrapped on his first sitcom, which is airing on Netflix next year. Congrats, James. That sounds great.
Thank you very much. It was a dream come true, although I would like to also work on the next series of Maths if we have one.
Just a quick disclaimer there for everyone. Yeah. So also on the panel today is Emma Pringle. Hi, Emma.
Hiya, hello.
Lovely to have you. So you're an experienced reality and entertainment senior producer with over 11 years industry experience, primarily focusing on casting and welfare. So really excited to dig into that later with you, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
Lovely stuff. We also have Phil Krstic on the call. Hey, Phil.
Hey, can I just say my webcam colour balance is off, so if I look red, it's not me.
That's not true. He looks constantly that red. He always looks that red.
Hello. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Phil. So you're the story producer who's been working in TV production for almost 10 years, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Amazing
I've done a lot,
stuff.
mostly for Channel 4, but yeah, lots of ITV as well. Sort of reality
Lovely.
factor.
And it's all specialised in reality, right?
Yeah, so the last sort of 2-3 years has predominantly been reality, but I've done a lot of stuff like in fact and a bit of consumer as well, so like food and wraps and superfoods.
Lovely stuff. And last on the panel today is Izzy Garvan. Hi, Izzy.
Hi, pleasure to be
doing?
here.
Oh, lovely stuff. Now, you're the researcher on
Yeah,
the
good,
show.
thank you.
Yeah, amazing. And you're working as a casting researcher, having just finished on Maths UK, and you came through the Creative Access Scheme and spent 6 months as an office runner for CPL Productions, working across loads of different shows, like There's Something About Movie, Life and Rhymes, and Harry Hill's Club Night too. So really excited to dig into that with you later, Izzy.
Yes, sounds good. Sorry,
Amazing.
I'm not sure if there's a delay, by the way. Just saying.
That's all right. It's an occupational hazard of Zoom. It's what happens here. But thank you so much, all of you, for being here today to share your experience with the audience. So how did they get to where they are today? And how can you follow in their footsteps if you're listening at home? We've got a bucket load of questions to throw at them over the next 50 minutes or so. So let's get started. And if you're partial to a bit of tweeting as well, I'd encourage you to use the hashtag RTS Futures if you like. Right, so let's get started and find out what your roles were on Married at First Sight UK. I'm going to come to you firstly, if that's all right. You were already working on Married at First Sight as a commissioning editor for Channel 4, and you were responsible for bringing the show to E4. But to anyone listening thinking, I don't really know what a commissioner is responsible for, can you kind of summarise what a commissioner does?
Oh God. It's twofold really. You are responsible for bringing in, developing and commissioning brand new ideas, originating new content and new series, new shows for the channel. So you take pitch meetings, people come to you with ideas for shows, you say yes, you say no, maybe. You then work with the production companies to develop those ideas, and then I also have to pitch as well. So people pitch to me, but I have to pitch upwards internally to my head of department and ultimately to Ian Cass as the chief creative officer. And so he has final rubber stamp approval, says yeah or no on the ideas. So I'm a sort of conduit and gatekeeper for new ideas and new programming on the channel. But then once those ideas are commissioned and in production, I'm sort of an executive at the channel who oversees that content and make sure it's compliant, make sure that you sort of quality control. You sign off on, you're very involved in creative decisions, but at a higher level. So I'll sign off on the cast, I'll sign off on the crew, I'll sign off on the format, I'll sign off on locations. So all those big decisions that have a big impact on what people are seeing on screen will usually require my sign off as well, and that obviously includes the edit, so the cuts. We'll start doing viewings, and those viewings will come to me, and I'll be back and give notes and try to improve it and help the team lick it into shape and produce the marvelous, sparkly finished product that the viewers lap up and enjoy at the end of the process. So it's twofold: there's sort of ideas and development and production and delivery. And then on top of that, sorry, I'm boring myself a bit, I'll shut up in a minute, but there are also inward-facing internal things you have to be aware of, like scheduling, marketing, promotion. Once you've got a product and you've got content or a series, you work within teams internally, the Channel 4 lawyers to make sure it's compliant, the Channel 4 marketing teams to make sure people know it's on telly, the scheduling team to talk about when and how we can deliver and where in the schedule we'll put it. So it's multifaceted and exhausting, frankly, but it can be a lot of fun as well. And when you get something like Married come along, which is really exciting, and it catches fire and everyone's talking about it, that's when it's most exciting.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. It sounds like there's a lot of cogs in the machine that you're, I guess, responsible for, making sure everything's moving smoothly and everything is as it should be, I suppose, and what you went for initially. I know what was behind the show's move from Channel 4 to E4. Was that a really key decision for you?
Yeah, it was a big decision. It was a big change. I mean, the show has been on Channel 4 since 2015. So, 6-7 years. It had I think it had done 5 series on Channel 4. And when something's been around for 5 years and more, you start to think about how you could creatively refresh it, keep people interested, move it on, evolve it, develop it. We did that with Series 5. Actually, there was a desire and an ambition to supersize it for Series 5. It'd only ever run for sort of 3 or 4 eps, and we cast it. We completely refreshed it for Series 5. We've got new experts in, Paul C. Brunson and a couple of other ladies who didn't come across to E4, but so the Jen and Angela, who were great. So we refreshed the matchmaking team, we refreshed the matchmaking process, we cast it so that it could run for 8 episodes, and then a pandemic came along and completely screwed it over. So we had to go back down to 4 episodes because weddings suddenly became illegal. But there was ambition even at Series 5 to refresh it and supersize it from 4 eps to 8. And then in the midst of that pandemic, Married at First Sight Australia came along and just became hugely popular. And we saw the popularity and the success of that show, and that combined with a desire to already refresh it and move it on made us think, well, why don't we give that a go? Why don't we massively supersize it? Why don't we change the tone and the approach in all sorts of other ways? And the result was that move from Channel 4 to E4, from 4 eps to 20 eps, a shift in tone and sensibility, the type of casting, but it paid off. It's hugely successful.
Amazing. And I've loved it. I've binge watched it so much for the last month or so. It's been a real crux for me, actually, having that dose of something to watch. It's been an amazing series. I want to congratulate you all on that, actually. It's been so entertaining as a viewer. Emma, I'm going to move on to you very quickly. How did you get into casting and welfare for TV?
Similar to everybody else that's here, probably. I started out as a runner, and then I naturally gravitated to casting. I think it was probably, and still is probably, best suited to my personality in comparison to the other avenues that you can take. I've never been that interested in cameras, so I don't ever think I would have become a self-shooting PD or something like that. So I think I naturally sort of fell into casting and then never looked back. Yeah, and I think that the issue sometimes is in the industry, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. If you're good at casting, you tend to just get offered casting gigs. And then it's quite easy to go from one casting job to another casting job, and you will find there will be lots of jobs on offer. So I guess that's how I've got to this point. And then welfare has been something I think that, again, naturally came from just lots of casting experience. The more experienced you are at casting, the more familiar you become with contributors and their needs and their wants, and the aftercare or the care that's involved during production. So I think it's just a byproduct of years of casting experience, but it's a welcome. I really enjoy welfare. It's nice to mix it up a bit, and it's also nice to follow that relationship through with your contributors. It's quite unique in that respect.
Yeah, I can't wait to get my teeth into that a bit more later, because it's a genuinely fascinating thing. Obviously, it's been quite a hot topic recently with reality TV to make sure that the contributors are well and happy and going through a distressing time following the show, even during the show itself. So let's really dive into that a little bit later, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
James, what were you responsible for as a series director on Married at First Sight?
So basically, as a series director, I'm in charge of like the visual look of the show, basically. So everything in terms of what cameras we use, what crew we use, how we film the weddings, how we film everything, how Phil would go into a scene and film the couples, whether someone had an argument, what happens in that stance. Basically, everything that happens visually is basically what I deal with. So, and then in terms of me actually directing, so that's part of like the style side of things. And then the directing, I would basically direct all the multi-camera setup. So the weddings, the dinner parties, the commitment ceremonies, the boys and girls day, and then the vow renewals. And then everything else is all on the shoulders of Phil and all the other PDs, who would then be based with the actual couples when they were in the apartments in Brighton, basically.
Speaking of Phil, am I right in saying that your role changed a little bit during the filming of Married at First Sight?
Yeah, so I first came on board as a story producer, but then sort of a couple of weeks in, it became useful for me to be able to pick up a camera and just quickly film various scenes. So the story producers typically wouldn't necessarily shoot. They're more on the top of, being with contributors and being across the story and what happens with all the contributors. Producer, a lot of some PDs don't shoot either, but a self-shooting PD obviously would do. So yeah, I was filming quite a bit, I guess, after 2 or 3 weeks into the series.
There was a shortage of good producer directors available at the time, so wow. Phil had to step up.
Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious, everyone. I was in the bubble, and it was convenient. I think it's more good than that.
Speaking of people with multiple talents on the production, as Izzy, you had the job of being a researcher and a runner on Married at First Sight. How did you get the job?
So I started off as a office runner at CPL Productions, and that was supposed to be just for 6 months. And then I was lucky enough to get that extended. And I actually ran on the old version of Married at First Sight, so before it made the change onto Channel E4. So I got to, be at the weddings and experience all that exciting stuff. And then I worked on a few other shows as a runner at CPL, so different genres. And then after that, I was given a ProdSec role, but then realised that the ProdSec route wasn't for me, the production route wasn't for me. So then I got offered the junior researcher role on Married at First Sight. And since then, yeah, I've realised I want to go down the editorial route.
Lovely stuff. Well, thanks so much, Izzy. And let's take a look at all your fabulous work with a clip chosen by Lee. So I can't wait to see this.
So now we're going to go to the decision. Alexis, we'll start with you. Okay, you're leaving. You're leaving, all right. So now, Jordan, we're gonna go to you.
Yeah, so there is something I'd like to say tonight. So last night at the dinner party, I found myself having a conversation with Megan. We were very similar in a lot of ways. And we actually shared a kiss.
What bitch?
She said that the relationship between her and Bob was not working for the reasons that she has been trying and Bob is not doing anything back. But what I seen tonight was Bob protecting somebody that didn't deserve protected. And how I seen her treat him compared to the story I heard and how I feel, I don't want to be mixed with somebody like that. So I've written stay.
Are you serious?
I'm very serious.
Are you serious? Why do you want to stay? For Megan?
What's the point of staying?
Like, why are you staying?
It was.
All right, let's.
Okay, well, can I say something then?
Right, if he wants to stay,
I'm changing mine to leave.
Hey, folks.
Fucking vile.
Folks, let's respect the forum, okay?
Wow.
Oh my days. Do you know what? That will never get old. I remember watching that live for the first time and my heart was in my mouth the entire time. Seeing Bob cry as well. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's great telly, but my heart bleeds for him. Lee, we just saw so much drama and emotion in that clip. Do you think it's these sort of moments, I suppose, that have kept the audience hooked, like me at home, I suppose, making E4's most successful commission this year?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what the reality audience come for, and that's what was sort of underpinned the success of Married at First Sight Australia, and sort of underpinned the success of the latest UK series. It's the drama and the raw. There was I think there's a couple of things to say on it. One is, I mean, I can share some secrets maybe. I don't think I'll be speaking out of turn. I don't know how interesting it'll be. I'll do that in a second. I've teased you there. Do you see what I've done there? It's there was a rawness and an authenticity to the emotions and the drama in the UK version that I thought, actually, if I'm being honest, hand on heart, no disrespect to our Australian cousins and what they do with that series. It's an amazing series, but it is much more heavily produced. And we were surprised. One of my anxieties when we relaunched the show on E4 is, could we be as dramatic as the Australians without being able to pull all the same levers? We're much more heavily regulated. We can't manipulate footage and material and contributors in the way that other territories can. And I was slightly anxious, will we get that level of drama and emotion that will hook people in? And by God, we did. I was pleasantly surprised. And it is what kept people coming back for more. But we were what you experienced, Sean, watching is what we experienced in the gallery. We were on the edge of our seats. And what had happened is we all thought that Jordan was going to stay. He didn't tell anyone that he was going to throw Meg under the bus. So we were in the gallery going, oh my God. We sort of knew this was coming. And we sort of were braced for the impact it would have on the whole cast, especially Bob, as you saw, but also Meg and the other couples in the group. And then suddenly out of nowhere, he didn't tell any of us this. He just threw under the bus, and we were gasping in the gallery. We're like, shit, what's he doing? We didn't know this was coming. So, you're surprised, you're taken unawares, and you're surprised yourself as producers at which way the stories turn. And the cast and contributors always surprise you, keeps you on your toes, but it does make great TV. But we've got to be mindful at the same time. You saw how upset Bob was there. He wasn't the only one who was upset that night. Alexis was upset. Meg was upset. It's great television, but there are human beings at the heart of it all, and making sure we looked after them is equally important. And a hats off to the team, for Emma and her team and the team generally. They did such an amazing job of looking after the cast during production, and to this day, Emma's taking calls from members of the cast right up until today to make sure they're okay and provide the support that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a show like that is built around the characters, right? And the people that you find, Emma, to want to participate in a show that on the surface of it, what? You want me to marry a stranger? That's madness. So it's quite difficult to find these people that are willing to do that type of thing. Can you tell me how you found potential daters for this show?
Yeah, so a lot of people come to our inbox. We generate flyers and wording to try and drive people there. And then they go through a casting process with members of the casting team who are brilliant at what they do. They'll speak to people first on the phone. And we look for characters. We look for people who are, open and honest, and as well as engaging and articulate and can talk about their feelings. I think the difference with MAFS compared to some other reality TV shows is that our cast do have to be very open. You can see, from that clip, they're quite emotionally engaged with their own emotions, and they're quite emotionally charged. So I think it's quite unique in that they have to be great characters and charismatic, as well as willing to be emotionally vulnerable and put themselves on the line by marrying a stranger. So there are lots of attributes that come into play. And on top of that, they also have to have a story, a reason as to why they're there and what has driven them to come to the point where they want expert help finding love. So there's a lot. It's a lot. It is a very big process, though. It's not as simple as just finding someone. There's a lot of processes that they go through before they get to the altar.
Mm-hmm. I think what's amazing as well, just to circle back to you, Lee, the authenticity of getting a reaction like Bob's then, if none of you knew that this was going to happen and that you see this response happening right in front of your very eyes, was that for you? How did you even feel about that, Emma, seeing that kind of unfold and thinking, oh my goodness, I need to look after Bob now, or we need to make sure that Alexis is okay? Even Jordan here, he's obviously putting his neck on the line by also, as you say, Lee, throwing Meg under the bus here. Are there certain processes that you have to then put in place, Emma?
Yeah, of course. And that's the thing that can sometimes be tricky, I think, with welfare and cast liaison, is that you have to be impartial. It doesn't matter who you think's in the right or in the wrong. They all matter. They are all in your care. So, you know, everybody's feelings are valid. And the first step normally after a scene like that would be to just let people vent. There's a lot of just letting people talk. They want to be heard. Emotions are high. They're angry. They're, you know, all the adrenaline's running through their body. And in the moment, sometimes they feel angry, upset, and they need to put those feelings somewhere. And what we do is we provide, I guess, a safe space for them to confide. We also have additional support from a site, on production psych. They can access that support whenever they want, and we encourage them to do that. Again, it's just a sort of impartial space that is private and confidential and just allows them to process those emotions. And I think it's really healthy for everybody involved in the production, for the cast to get that emotion out, process it, and move on, so that it's a healthy environment for everyone, and obviously so that they feel supported and heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's key to make sure that everybody involved is happy to even be in that situation in the first place, right? So I think it's wonderful what you're doing and ensuring that their mental health is a real key priority, even after the show's wrapped, you know, that you're still in touch.
Yeah, we're still in touch with them. They always have, you know, a contact number, an email. They can get in touch with us. It doesn't stop, you know, when the cameras drop. In fact, if anything, I think the aftercare levels go up when the show's on air, and, you know, because they're reliving all these emotions and they're watching it again. And it, especially for the couples that were no longer together, it can be a difficult process to see it all played back. And that can, you know, it can, yeah, it's a lot. It's a very unique experience. And I think it would be abnormal to not have any feelings in relation to, you know, going through that experience and rewatching it. So yeah, we take it very seriously, actually. Yeah,
incredible stuff. James, I'm going to turn to you next. That's all right. How has the show been stylized to appeal to a younger audience, or an E4 audience this time around?
Well, first, I just want to say as well, Emma and the casting team did such a good job, because that cast were incredible, by the way, and that's why that clip is so good, because of all those characters that are in the story were brilliant, basically, and why the series was so successful. Emma, that's your plug. It's over. Okay, so in terms of how the show has been stylized for a younger audience, basically, I think in terms of how the show was before on Channel 4, it was trying to make it more cinematic and glossy, because the Channel 4 version, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Lee, but I think it was more of like a docky style. There were minimal cameras. It was normally a producer director who was kind of just following the couples on their own and fly on the wall style. Whereas this was we were bringing it to E4 in a much more reality setting, in line with other shows like Love Island and Too Hot to Handle and stuff like that. So I think when you do that, and to also then going on to E4 where it is a younger audience, is trying to make it in line with that genre and to just lift it cinematically and gloss levels, essentially. So like with the weddings, I got drones on it to then give it the cinematic feel. So then all of the venues had this, you know, big drone shots, so it was showing off where they were getting married. And then likewise, when they got married, to add to the cinematic feel of them walking down the aisle, we would actually let them see each other for the first time. And in that moment, when they got married, you know, the big moment for me that Lee and the series producer and the exec would talk about was when that groom turns around and they see each other for that first time. And that's why, like, in the trailer, it was always that shot where Luke did that weird, like, spin thing where he looked back at Morag. But that was, like, the big shot for the weddings. And then we'd let them go for all that. So they'd see each other for their first time. They'd do their vows. They'd have a kiss. They'd walk back. And then we'd immediately separate them. And then we'd pull all the cameras out. And then we'd get them to just walk it through again. So then we could do, like, slow-mo shots of them walking down the aisle, slow-mo, walking back, do drone shots, just to lift it cinematically, because otherwise you're just seeing cameras everywhere, basically. And then the same way in terms of, we tried to theme it a bit differently to the Oz version, because I don't know if you noticed, but their dinner party and commitment ceremony was like in the warehouse. And I think we tried to lean more into our Soho farmhouse chic, like into the British sensibilities. So we were more in barns and things like that for like the commitment ceremony and dinner party, just to make it feel different, essentially. And it sounds like a lot of young people watched it, so I think we did okay.
Yeah, that okay is scratching the surface, I think, James. And yeah, stylistically, it was beautiful. Phil, a really quick one, just to bounce off James, really. How did you make sure that you captured the most dramatic and heartwarming and sometimes heart-wrenching moments?
I think as a story producer, your biggest role really is just to build relationship with the people that you're filming, so that when they're going through difficult situations, either as a couple or with some of the other couples, they open up to you and tell you things. So for example, you know, when they're back at the apartments, there's no fixed rig, so you know, we try as best as possible for people not to talk to each other off camera, but inevitably sometimes people will have conversations off camera, which we then need to pick up scenes to follow something that may have happened off camera. So it's building a relationship with the cast, so that when things do happen, you know, they tell you, and that you can, you know, film various scenes to make sure that you're building a narrative that makes sense. For example, if an argument happens off camera and we haven't filmed that, and then in the next day 2 people have fallen out with each other, it wouldn't make sense if we didn't then film something that sort of suggested as to why these people have, you know, may have fallen out.
Yeah. Did you have
like the kiss? Like if you hadn't had the relationship with Jordan and Megan for them to tell you guys, then we'd never would have known about it, essentially. And then, you know, we didn't have any of that on camera, but then they filmed a scene with the 2 of them talking about the fact they kissed, and that was enough. And you know, it's almost better in the way the audience didn't see it. You hear about it, and then you see the fallout.
Yeah, again, I think it adds to the genuineness of what exactly is going on, right? I think reality TV, we can often be under this guise that, oh, everything is set up and, oh, nothing is real. But actually, the fact that it wasn't caught on camera, and it's not as if you're following these people 24 hours a day and they have no sense of privacy in their lives. So there was that time period that you're with them. I think it adds a real magic to the show. So I think it worked really, really well, personally. Phil, did you have any like challenging or awkward moments when filming with any couples?
I think just when things got heated, obviously that's a challenge. You have to, you know, work with the cast even when they're getting upset or angry about things. I mean, I was really lucky. I was following Adam and Taya, and I just had the privilege of following just the most beautiful love story from beginning to end. So I did feel very, very lucky. I also covered a lot of Megan and Bob's stories. But yeah, the dinner parties were challenging when things got heated. We were sat kind of in a gallery setup watching things unfold, but I would be the person having to get in a taxi with them on the way back to the apartments. And some of those taxi journeys were very awkward, and you're trying to kind of, again, you don't want revelations or things to happen off camera as much as possible. So you are trying to shut down chats and be in a taxi with people where they're essentially really falling out with people. But yeah, I think the sort of heatedness of a lot of the scenes was quite difficult to work with at times. But again, it's fascinating TV, so it's
yeah. The bits I loved in particular were when you would come into their bedrooms the morning after the wedding, and sometimes they'd be in bed together, sometimes they'd be sleeping in different rooms. So maybe someone's on the sofa. Bob was thrown on the sofa for most of the series by the looks of things. What was it like even walking into the bedroom saying like, sorry guys, do you mind if we just film you really quickly? I know you've just woken up. How was that?
It is quite unusual. So I did Adam and Taya's honeymoon in Antigua, and they, I mean, as you saw in the series, they were at it like rabbits. Fair play, good for them. They fell in love instantly. So I remember one morning kind of knocking into their room, be like, hey, how's it going? And I could just tell from their faces that they had been getting it on the night before. And I was like, okay, I see this is going very well here. And I was like, so one challenge, Adam was a lot more reluctant to open up compared to Taya. So I think there's that, in the episode, there was that hilarious moment where we did an OTF, and on the fly with Adam. And I was like, so what happened last night? How's it going with you and Taya? And he was like, Amanda's not kiss and tell. So that was a bit annoying. But then we went to Taya, and Taya was like, oh my God, we're at it like rabbits. So it's like, yeah, there's quite a few sort of funny moments like that.
Yeah, amazing stuff.
It takes tenacity, I think, as well, doesn't it? It's the two T's, it's trust and tenacity. You get your contributors to trust you, but then you can't just expect them. I mean, Emma's right. People open up to you, and we cast people who are willing to be open and emotionally vulnerable and can articulate their inner thoughts and feelings. But they don't just give it to you on a plate. There's a real skill and a doggedness for the team. I would bet money that Phil had to ask Taya 3 times before she went, look, if you want to know, we've been at it like fucking rabbits. You know, you can't give up. You've got to go at them, not like that, to get the sync and the interview that you want. So it's hard, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah, it definitely isn't easy. But yeah, it just comes from spending a lot of time with them and just ultimately having fun with them as well. So as much as they are going through a difficult time, it's a reality TV show, and 9 times out, like most of the contributors that would want to take part in the series probably just want to have a good laugh as well, and hopefully meet someone nice down the line, their future husband or wife. So yeah, it's just about having fun with them and just being honest with them as well, and sort of saying to them, you know, there are going to be times during this filming period where you're not going to want to talk to me and you're not going to want to open up to me, but you know, as part of there are certain things that we do have to follow, and I think just to tell, you know, their story. But we were lucky; they were very Lou was saying with the cast, they were brilliant at opening up, and their personalities definitely complemented that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've just got just a scratch of the surface there of what you do on your day-to-day responsibilities, Phil. I'm curious about Izzy. I know you're someone that has been in the industry for a little bit less than everyone else, I'm guessing, on this call, because you're a researcher. What were some of the responsibilities that you had day-to-day?
So we started casting from around November through to March, and I would spend the majority of the time going through the inbox and adding any applicants who looked good or had an interesting story to short audition. We use short audition to kind of cast people for the show. They usually like upload a video of themselves and any information that they feel like we should know about them. And because I'd never done the researcher role before, I did get the chance to make a few calls, and I did do a few Zoom interviews, but I wasn't doing that majority of the time. So if we had a pitch coming up, it was kind of my responsibility to get the social media and background checks done on the contributors, just to make sure it was appropriate for them to go further on through to the show. And we would also design casting cards. Lee knows about these casting cards of each of the contributors with like a short bio and just a photo of them, and to kind of like get an idea of who they're looking for and who they would be well matched to. And then we were quite in contact with Paul, who would also have Zoom conversations with friends and family of potential contributors. So I would set up those alongside my boss. And then once we'd kind of done the casting, we would help kind of get prep done for the weddings. So that was really fun, kind of like, it was a bit hectic at times because we'd be like having to call all these last minute family and friends being like, are you coming to the wedding? Obviously because of COVID, numbers had to be cut short. But I also got to help kind of like source locations for backstory, and one I was really proud of was for the girls' hen do. I was lucky enough to find the sipping room where they actually ended up filming, so I was really proud to see, you know, my hard work put on a screen on TV. It's nice to see that afterwards. And yeah, I was lucky enough to attend the majority of the weddings and the dinner parties and commitment ceremonies. Yeah, so I was quite lucky because I saw it the whole way through. It wasn't just like I was casting and then stopped. And I think that was one of the best things to do, to see it all go through. And it also helped Emma with a lot of the welfare side of things at the end. And it was just, you know, so important to see how important the well-being of the contributors is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the idea of having to obviously talk to the families beforehand to see how they feel about it. We know that, was it Taya, her family weren't 100% on board with the idea of her marrying a stranger. What was that like for you to manage emotionally for everybody involved?
Yeah, it could be quite difficult at times because, you know, I can completely understand Taya's mum, why she would feel a bit nervous about it. You know, at the end of the day, that's her daughter. It is a TV show. And, you know, she had that fear of it not working out and Taya not finding love. But we just had to, you know, be as calm with them as possible and put them at ease. And in the end, they were happy. And every time Taya's mum actually came to do filming with us, in the end, she had the best time. And she said to us she loved it. Yeah. So, you know, it's just making them feel comfortable.
Absolutely. To stick around about the characters just a little bit more, because these are human beings. Lee, this series welcomed the show's first ever gay couple, which was amazing. Dan and Matt were absolute sweethearts. Why was this really important for you?
It's well, you know, we want to represent all facets and aspects of the world we live in. And it had been an ambition to include a same-sex partnership and wedding for forever. Look, as Emma talked about previously, it's really hard to find people who want to go on this crazy journey, who want to meet their future husband or wife at the altar, want to marry at first sight. It's quite a bonkers thing to do. It's an amazing and exciting thing to do, and when it works, as we saw with Adam and Taya, and as we saw with Dan and Matt beautifully, it's brilliant. You know, imagine if someone said to you in 6 months' time, you're going to be with your soulmate, you're going to be with the one that you're going to marry and live your life with, and we can sort that out for you. It's quite a fascinating and life transforming and nutty proposition, and really exciting to be part of. But it's we've been trying to get a same-sex partnership and wedding since we've been making the series pretty much, and we actually had a gay couple lined up for series 5, but one of them pulled out. So it's always been the ambition. It's baked into Channel 4's DNA that we want to be representative and champion diversity and inclusion. So it's really important that we did that, and also just to normalize the validity and beauty of same-sex relationships, to just not really make a song and dance of it. It was referenced. Mel referenced her excitement about it as doing it for the first time, but we didn't make a song and dance about it. They had a wedding like everyone else. They were part of the cohort. They were just like all the other couples. And to, you know, I'm gay myself, and so to know that if I'd have seen that sort of representation and seen that on TV when I was growing up, it would have been really important. And to know that we're doing that for a generation of LGBT kids watching at home, to see themselves represented on screen and to see it normalized and validated, is a really, really important thing to do. And I'm really, really happy we did it and finally managed to put it in one of our series. And we won't stop there. We'll continue to be as diverse and representative as possible. It's not a one-off. You know, if we have another gay or same-sex wedding, or anyone from any member of the LGBT community in the next series of Married at First Sight UK, should there be one, then we will, you know, and that counts for all manner of all aspects of diversity and inclusion, whether it's ethnicity or disability or class or what have you. It's really important to get a broad cast. Izzy mentioned the cards we have.
Yes.
Where we have, it's a bit like, do you remember on X Factor where they used to stand around a table and choose people? A little bit like that. It's really important to get the mix right. You want different shades, and flavours and complexions, and metaphorically speaking, colours. You know, you want all different sort of notes and sensibilities. And so it's really important to get as mixed and as varied a cast as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing to see as well. And as you say, it's so important these days for it to be normalised, that it's not just let's make a massive sing and dance about this. Let's make a huge deal. As you say, you're representing normal, everyday people that you would come across every single day. And I think it's wonderful what you guys have done with Dan and Matt. And it's so great. Are they still together? Can you say that?
Yeah, my mate saw them in IKEA.
No way.
He got very excited. My mate messaged me. I'm from Yorkshire, and so I've got friends in Leeds, and he messaged me going, "Guess what I've just seen?" I was like, "I don't know, Katy Perry." It's like, "No, Dan and Matt in IKEA." Sent me the picture, and his mum had got a picture with Dan and Matt. "Oh, lovely boys," she said. And you know, he was so excited to see Dan and Matt off the telly. And you forget when you do this job that people have gone on that journey with them and seen them fall in love and feel like they're part of their lives. So when they see them in IKEA, they get excited. That's brilliant as well. It's part of the fun and part of the reason we do the job.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that they're buying flat pack furniture. That's only a great thing, to be honest. I love that for them. That's amazing.
But they may have now broken up due to buying flat pack furniture. That might have been the thing that killed it.
Just looking at the directions upside down, someone else saying, "No, we don't need it," you know, and all the screws are flying all over the place. Oh, amazing stuff. This is also a quick reminder for anyone watching at home, please send in your questions, as we'll have just a couple of minutes at the end, maybe about 10 or so, to pick their brains if you'd like. Anything at all, that'll be wonderful. So just to kind of bring things forward now and looking to the future, Lee, are there any plans to recommission another series, or is that are my lips sealed at the moment?
Well, there are plans.
Okay.
We're actively talking about it. We aren't officially, you know, we haven't announced yet, but you know, watch this space. It was a very successful series. We all loved making it. We all loved what it did for the channel. So, you know, we don't want to let you guys down. You mentioned, Charles, before we started the session, and how much you loved having your daily dose of maths every night. You know, we've got to keep our public happy. So fingers crossed, yes, there'll be more to come, but we're not officially there yet.
All right, well, that's good enough for me. I think I can rest easy knowing that there's maybe one coming. That'll be marvellous. Phil, what did you enjoy most about working as a story producer on Married at First Sight this year?
Oh my gosh. I think, like I said, following the love story of Adam Tay was amazing. A nice little trip to Antigua as well, wasn't too
I bet.
Although, obviously we were out there for work, so there was very little downtime. But yeah, no, it was, in fact, when we went to Antigua, I think it was during a bit of a lockdown, but you were allowed to travel for business. And so we turned up at the airport and they asked the police at the airport were like, and why are you guys traveling? And Adam and Tay were like, we're on a honeymoon. Like, no, this is for business. So I then had to get all my paperwork and explain it was some business. But yeah, I think I mean, yeah, probably just following the most amazing love story, I would say. And yeah, and then just sort of, yeah, I would say definitely that would be my highlight.
Oh, incredible. Izzy, you've progressed quite quickly since being an office runner. What do you think has set you apart from your colleagues? Did you feel like you went above and beyond in certain areas to think, I really want to make myself stand out and to move up the ranks?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier that I was offered a job to work as a prod sec, and obviously that wasn't the route I wanted to necessarily go down. But what I did was I was told that if I worked in that role, I would be able to, you know, shadow the girl on the team who was casting for the show. So when I had spare time, I would kind of sit in on those sessions she would have trying to cast for the show. And the team was so lovely. They helped me, they allowed me to sit in when they were thinking of ideas for the rounds on the show. And I was fortunate enough to actually record rehearsal footage and edit footage, and I've never edited footage in my life, so I really just, you know, made sure I made time to kind of stand out more by putting extra, you know, putting myself out there more by trying to take on as much as possible, and I think that's really kind of a great way of progressing, and that's probably why I managed to get the role on Maths, because, you know, I got that editorial experience even though it was a production role.
Yeah, I mean, what advice would you give to someone who really wants to be a researcher or a runner in this type of television? Is there anything that you feel like that was such an easy way for me to get in? Or I know there are a lot of barriers sometimes that come into working in TV. It's incredibly competitive. How did you get your foot in the door? What advice would you give to someone who really wants to work on something like Married at First Sight?
Just don't be afraid to get stuck in, you know, like when you're on a job with a team, don't be afraid to kind of ask them questions and kind of ask how they got to where they are today. Like, people are willing to help, and it's so important to have those conversations, and, you know, that's a way of new doors opening. I do feel like the more people you know, the easier it becomes to get these jobs. I didn't really know anyone that worked in the TV industry, but once I got my foot in the door, it really just has been so easy from then onwards. And also, when you're looking to get a role in kind of TV, don't be fussy about what genres to get into. Be very open and, you know, try all different types of genres, because that's a way you can really figure out which sort of route you want to go down and what sort of role is best suited to you. You don't know until you try them all.
Absolutely. Just to turn to you, James, what sorts of attributes do you think you need to have to become a successful series director?
I'd say that you need to be a good leader and be a good communicator, because basically you've got to convey the style of what you want to do for the show to a lot of people who aren't as invested as you are. Basically, you know, you have crew members turning up who are going to be there for a day, or producers like Phil who just aren't very committed, and you just have to get them to listen to your viewpoint and basically be invested in the show as much as you are. So trying to make sure that, like in that clip that you saw with Bob, you know, the camera is zooming in, so telling the camera operators, if anyone gets upset, the camera needs to go in for close-ups. We need to see the drama when it unfolds. If anyone starts to get teary, or if there's emotion coming out, we need to be closer on people. Just things like that, essentially. And I think it's important to have a good visual eye and be interested in telling stories. Like these are, we're essentially telling, although it's a reality show, we're telling their stories. So the moment, you know, Bob was very nervous before he met Megan, and it's showing those nerves, and then that story arc of him being like a puppy and constantly wanting to please her, and him wearing his heart on his sleeve, and always showing that visually when he's waiting for her to turn up, or him being antsy in the apartment. It's just telling those things, that what he was feeling through the visual medium, and so that you, the audience, understand what he's going through, essentially. I think that's what it's about. And also being calm under pressure, because you're constantly having to change plans of what you're going to do. So like Dan and Matt, we had a big plan for them to shoot them under these festoons, twinkly lights, had the drone ready for them to say I love you to each other. And then at the dinner party, they were like, someone asked them, oh, so do you guys love each other? Like, yeah, we said it to each other yesterday. And it was like,
no,
the story was done. But it was fine, because then they all cheered and they enjoyed it. And, you know, we still got the emotion of it. You know, you guys would have seen what was coming anyway if we'd set it up in a romantic way. And likewise, you know, Bob storming out after when he got teary. Anytime anyone storms out, you just got to be ready for that, to then tell the camera operator to make sure they go and get that, and then Bob runs out, Jordan's then still talking to Paul while he's saying, respect the forum, and you're trying to capture all those things at the same time and keep your eyes over many different things. And the same way Phil, so how we had it was the story producers, so like at the dinner party, story producers are watching 6 monitors. There's a story producer for each couple, so they're listening to what they're all saying. So what will happen is Adam and Taya will be, talking about something not interesting, and then Jordan and Alexis might start having an argument, and so then you're having to get the cameras to then go to film them, and then Phil's like, no, Adam and Taya are now talking about they've had an argument, and so you're constantly trying to make sure we're capturing what's happening, basically. So it's quite stressful.
Yeah.
So having a cool head.
Yeah, Emma, just a quick one for you, actually. What do you enjoy most about being a casting producer? Because obviously we see these stories unfold and these characters really come into their own, potentially feeling really comfortable on camera by the end of the process. What is the most enjoyable part of it for you?
Well, I think the people, it's quite unique. It's a unique role, really, casting contributors, because you are essentially just speaking to people a lot, especially the beginning process of a production like Maths. You're hearing people's stories and you learn a lot about humans and human behavior. And that's what particularly interests me, and the reason why I enjoy my job. Where some other people find that part of program making, it's their idea of hell. Quite often people don't really want to get into casting, believe it or not. It's not necessarily the glory area of our industry, because you are dealing with people. People can be difficult, and people can be confusing, and people can throw you off, and they're always challenging. And I think that's what I find interesting, is the people and the stories and watching them come to life, and never assuming that you can read somebody or that you've got someone sussed, because what I've learned over the years is often you might, to an extent, but people are complex and people have lots of layers, and it's what keeps us tuned into these types of shows, is we see parts of ourselves in these people. And I find it fascinating. I really enjoy it.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Emma. And I think we've got some questions that have come rolling in, which is wonderful. So I might open this up to the floor, and if you feel compelled to answer them, please do, because even if I don't direct it to the right person, I don't want to catch anyone off guard. So the first questions come in saying, are there any cheating scandals, set up or fake at all, as it's been seen a few times within the Australian series and now in the UK one? Anyone want to take that on?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely no way.
It's not fake. We get accusations and sort of suggestions of that all the time, and it's not. We didn't. As James and other guys on the call on the session have pointed out, we didn't capture the kiss. If we'd have set it up, we'd have filmed it. We're not that stupid. And we didn't, because we didn't know it was coming. It happened very naturally, organically. I could not have more secrets from backstage. I thought Meg and Bob would go the distance. My prediction was they'll be having babies. You cannot predict how the cast will react and respond to it. But I could not have told you before we set the cameras running at the start of series 6, series 1, 3, 4, that it would have been Meg and Bob who would have that explosive encounter. I wouldn't have put money on it. No, sort of assessing the characters as we did when we embarked on casting. It was completely unexpected. It's not set up. It may be the case that they produced a bit more heavily and in other territories, and it is more scripted, but we didn't do that, no.
I mean, I would agree with you. And when Megan came down those sweeping staircase and Bob looked up like this, like completely starstruck almost. Yeah, you were convinced in that moment, done deal. Great job, everyone. This is going to go the distance, So as you say, it's amazing how many twists and turns it can take. There's another question that's come in here saying, how legal is the wedding ceremony, and would it add anything to see them signing a register?
They're not legal. To be honest, it's out there. It's common knowledge within the press pack, and we were honest about it in the show. They were historically legal. In series 1 to 5, when it was the show that PX on Channel 4, they were legally binding, fully official, fully legal weddings, to the extent that contributors had to rewrite their wills. Because imagine the worst happened, and someone died. This person they met 2 days ago would inherit everything in law, potentially, and their family wouldn't be very happy. So they were legally binding weddings, series 1 to 5. They're not in series 6. The decision was taken that if we're going to have such a big cast and we're going to alter the tone and the sensibility to take it more down a reality route than, as James has described it, a more documentary route, then we should be a bit more relaxed about the commitment that they make to each other. However, you put a woman in a wedding dress and see what it does to her. You know, that's not me being misogynistic or an arse, I hope. I hope that's not how it comes across. My point, we put a man in a morning suit, what it does to him, not as much, to be honest. But my point is, the trappings of conventional weddings are all around you. Your family are there, your mum's there in her best hat, your dad's there in his best big bin tucker, you're there in a wedding dress, about to walk down the aisle. There's a celebrant waiting at the end. It doesn't matter really that it's not legally binding. It feels to everyone taking part like it's a massive deal. Like it's a massive deal. It feels like a real wedding, and that's what's important. And it feels like that for viewers. And ultimately, these people have come to us, as Emma said, because they want to find love. And they're really invested in it. They really want it, the majority of them. And so they want it to work. They try their best. They stick around because they want to make it. It hasn't worked for them in the past. They try their best to make it work. And that's why it's such a fascinating process to observe and be part of.
I think because of the format as well of the show, the fact that they then, as soon as they get married, they say goodbye to their family. They don't see them again until they go and do that family home visit. They are in a bubble with that couple, with that other person, and they are with them the whole time. To them, it feels very like they have got married. Yeah. And they're suddenly thrust into this, you now living with this person 24/7.
Yeah. Was this bubble, James, was that because of COVID, or would that have happened anyway?
The bubble, I mean, in terms of bubble, as in like they wouldn't have seen their family, that would have happened anyway. But yeah, but there was a COVID bubble because essentially like Phil and everyone who was at the apartments producing them, they all had to be in a COVID bubble. So when they would come to dinner parties and commitment ceremonies, that's why the experts, they weren't in the bubble. They had to sit 2 meters apart. Likewise, I wasn't allowed near the cast. Lee wasn't allowed near the cast. We all had to stay 2 meters away from them, essentially. So we definitely weren't telling them to go and kiss someone because we weren't even allowed near them.
It sounds really challenging. We've got one more question that's come in here saying, hi, greetings from Australia. So if the show is an international format like Love Island or Married at First Sight, and a new country would start producing it, who pitches it? So what are the potential limitations and rights to be taken into consideration? I think this might be one for you, Lee.
I have no idea. I don't really know. I think I'm right in saying, God, I'm probably going to get this wrong. I think the format holders are a company called Red Arrow, and they will effectively franchise it out through local independent production companies to the different networks. I think it started like in Denmark.
Yeah, it's somewhere like that. It says it on the end of the credits, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it started life in Denmark, and then it was picked up by other territories. I can't recall off the top of my head without looking at research who picked up after Denmark, whether it's us or Australia or America. But it's in you know, it's still going in Denmark. I think it's obviously still going here. Obviously still going Australia. It's still going in America, where I think I can't remember which channel it is. I think it might be Lifetime. They just have it on every day, pretty much. It's hugely successful for them. And they have spin-off shows and all manner of ancillary programming that supports and spins off from the main series. So I don't know is the honest answer, but I suspect Red Arrow will select or be in talks with a subsidiary company in their in the different territories, and they will take it to a broadcaster. And the fact it's so successful now in those big territories like the UK, USA, and Australia, I imagine would make it quite an easy sell. But it's, as a stuff, it's quite controversial. Still, there's a lot of people when it launched in the UK was like, this is making a mockery of marriage. So in some of the more conservative territories, it may not be picked up.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, really? It is absolutely fascinating. We've had one more question come through, actually, just in the last couple of minutes. Are contestants matched truthfully on genuine compatibility? Big one.
Yes. Yeah. I saw some of those questions coming through. They're not, we don't just cast people because they, it's not, this isn't Big Brother. We don't just cast people because we think they'll be good telly. There is a behind the scenes process. There is an off-screen psychologist, Angela, who was the on-screen psychologist in series 5 of Married at First Sight on Channel 4, is now the off-screen psychologist on the E4 version. She works very closely with the matching panel. She's worked with Paul C. Brunson as a matchmaker for years, I think. And she interrogates the cast personality through various testing questionnaires and means and methods to assess their personality type, their attachment styles, and all manner of psychological dimensions of their personality that informs who would be a good match for them. And we will actively reject or not feature contributors for whom we can't find a match. There have been contributors and members of the public who've come along for even this most recent series who've been great characters, and we would dearly have loved to feature them in the show, but we couldn't find a match for them. So it is all predicated. The experts came in for a bit of stick this series, but the success rate of this series is the best so far. We had 8 couples. By the end, by the reunion show, 3 of them, nearly 50% of them, were still together. We've not had a success rate like that in the UK before. Till series 5, we didn't really have much success at all. They didn't tend to stay together. So these past couple of series, since we've switched up and changed the matching process, have been much more successful. And boy, what success we've had with Dan and Matt, Adam and Ted. They're deeply in love with each other.
It's amazing to see, even for yourself, Emma, is matching these people up something that is, it's obviously a massive priority. You want these people to fall in love. Do you see that on the face of it when you go through these people thinking, do you know what, that person would actually go really well with this person? Or is it all left to the experts?
No, we definitely do an element of that, especially if there's someone that comes through, like Lee said, you might come across a person, a character, and you think this person's brilliant, they've got a great backstory. You root for people as well. You get attached to your contributors, so you want them to find love. So you discuss it as a team, and with the channel, and you then get hell bent on finding that person a match. That comes from the casting team going out there and looking and trying to find suitable people, and then we put it to the experts, who obviously have the final say, and they put their expertise to work. But yeah, we're always thinking about who could work with who. And like Lee said before, during the casting process, we thought Bob and Meg were an amazing match. Everyone did, experts did, we all did. Sometimes the formula's there and you think it will work and it doesn't. But that's part of matchmaking. That's just love in general, isn't it? If you had that formula, you'd be a millionaire.
Oh yeah.
So it's always going to be
like be smitten kittens all the
exactly.
time.
No, it's not an exact science. That's what people forget. It's not an exact science. It's not like making a cake. 2 eggs, a pound of sugar, a pound of flour, and you've got a cake. It is best endeavours. We very sincerely and earnestly try to match people, and we genuinely believe in the matches, and the expert also believe in those matches based on their psychological profiling, and they endorse these matches. But there's always that little extra something. There's a spark, and it doesn't always catch fire, unfortunately. And it's sad when it doesn't. But everyone goes into this process wanting the best for the contributors and wanting them to work out and to find what they've come to us looking for, which is love and companionship and the happy ever after. When we get it, it's brilliant, but it's hard. It's hard. I get it. It's not an exact science.
No, and that's a lovely way to end this chat. I mean, that's all we have time for. Unfortunately, we could chat for hours and hours and hours on this. I'm so curious about all the processes behind Married at First Sight. What an amazing series. I've got all my fingers and toes crossed for series 2. Please, Lee, please make it happen. Please make it work. But thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to Lee, James, Phil, Emma and Izzy, who've given up their time and their precious wise words so generously. And finally, just to mention, we have a few more events coming up between now and December. So please do keep checking the Futures events page for more details. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful week. Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.